Ahoy mateys, we're setting sail on some turbulent waters. This is History of Sexuality, Lecture 4B, Part 1, the overview. I'm going to go over what I'm talking about in today's lecture and to frame it a little bit in the context of your reading Stranger Intimacy. In this video, I will talk about everything I'm going to cover today. In Part 2, we'll talk about the Great Depression, a really disruptive event that has a lot of lessons and resonances in this current moment, because I think we are learning a lot about economic disruption and some of the different ways that it affects sexuality, gender, race, and reverberates far beyond the economy. Then we'll think about the major response that happened to the Great Depression in the 1930s, the New Deal, a series of programs at the federal level that vastly reshaped the way that the U.S. government engages the economy, as well as reshaping intimate life for so many people in ways that, again, are very much with us today. Very familiar programs like Social Security come out of the New Deal. And so this is important for us to understand, and about the way that it pushed change in certain ways in terms of sexuality, but also tried to impede other forms of change. Then in lectures 4 and 5, parts 4 and 5, I'll talk about World War II, beginning by a focus on some of the things that happened abroad and then bringing it back home, thinking about 1940 to 1945 and this period of World War II, where again the United States is being transformed much more significantly so than we saw in World War I, in ways that are of course going to set us up for that post-war era that we've talked about as particularly conformist in nature. What you're going to see today is that today's talks start to really depart a little bit from the timelines, from the specificities that Nayan Shah is engaging. We're going to talk about a lot of the same themes. He's engaging these concepts of thinking about stranger intimacy, right? Ideas about who belongs in which spaces, who is strange there, or who is normal there, and then thinking about different ideas of intimacy. This is going to come in talking about the Depression and the New Deal, and we're going to see that some of the things he's talking about are in flux in World War II as the United States is going to start engaging Asia in new ways, in different ways in this earlier era. But overall, it's important that you think about taking both of these as two separate and complementary pieces. What I talk about in the lectures isn't covered in the book. What he talks about in the book isn't covered in these lectures. They go very well together, but he's much more specifically focused on the West, on the earlier part, the first third of the 20th century, and on questions that really circulate around these individuals, these South Asian men who are working and traveling through the US and Canadian West at this time. So you want to make sure again that you're engaging both the lectures and the book, and be thinking about how they build you towards document analysis number 3. There's a link up in the assignment so you can go and look at this 1967 case, Loving v. Virginia, and then find another primary document you want to bring into conversation with that. A couple of you have reached out with different ideas. All of them have been good so far. But if you're concerned, if you feel like maybe it's not the right piece to compare to or bring into conversation with, let me know. Before it's due, I'll do another Zoom chat as I have done in the past, but for this week we want to just be thinking about how do we get through Stranger Intimacy, how do we get through our lectures, how do we make sure that we're keeping up with all of our discussions and quizzes. If you happen to fall behind a little bit, I know that happened to a number of people because of last week's document analysis. Well, 4A, the lecture, the discussion, and the quiz are both still up there. Get those done as soon as you can. And then when you're done watching today's videos, go to discussion 4B and get to work on that. Otherwise, you can turn to video 2, where I'll be talking about the Great Depression.